producer who was on this all weekend. And Senator Tim Kaine, a member of the Armed Services Committee, has just left the hearing to join me now. I don't know, Senator, if you were able to hear Mick, but he is reporting what you heard from General Campbell. There was a terrible mistake, and they're no longer alleging that there was any firing on coalition forces from inside the facility. They're acknowledging a mistake was made, and was made between special forces on the ground and the AC-130.
Andrea, yeah, I was at the hearing and I heard your own reporting on it. It was a horrible mistake. The lives lost are tragic. This is an organization that does very important humanitarian work in really tough areas. It's clear that the Afghan army called for the strike of this location. That call was vetted by the United States, and there were U.S. ground assets, counterterrorism assets, in communication with the plane that delivered the strike. And so a mistake somewhere, and it's a grave and serious one. I think the general mentioned this morning, General Campbell, that he thought there would be a preliminary report within 30 days. A NATO report, an Afghan report, and a U.S. investigation, all three are underway. I would also welcome an independent investigation so everybody can be confident in it, but it's going to reveal what the mistake was, and it's a tragedy.
Let me back up a second and ask you your take on this, because there's been some speculation that the Afghans set us up and that there was tribal rivalries, there's corruption in the area, and that the Afghan leaders, military leaders, have long been antagonized by the policies, the policies under the Geneva Convention, that these charities treat all patients, that if you come in, you could have been a Taliban combatant, but as long as you're unarmed, you are treated as a patient. Is there something else going on here that you want to know?
You know, Andrea, I mean, there's a lot that I want to know, but I think it's probably better not to speculate. I do think that the investigation will lay bare exactly what happened. Look, it is the case that the U.S., pursuant to our policy, we're dramatically drawing down our presence in Afghanistan. We are turning the fight over as of last January to the Afghan military. They are the party that is engaged now in fighting against the brutal Taliban that intentionally targets civilians. I don't want to speculate whether the Afghan military, called us to deliver this strike to set us up. That would be odd. They want our help. If they set us up to do this, they would know that would likely lead to a diminution in confidence and a diminution in the help of the United States, because we are still getting significant requests for more assistance. So, you can hypothesize what might have happened or what the mistake might have been, but I think for now we know there was a mistake, and within short order we'll know what the mistake was, and we'll have to work to correct it.
And also, General Campbell testified that there are options being given to the president to continue the troop presence in Afghanistan beyond the supposed withdrawal date. What can you tell us about that, and where do you stand on that?
Sure. Well, I try not to ask the general about what he's communicating to the president, because he needs to have the ability to communicate freely. But I do ask him what is his professional judgment. His professional judgment is that too precipitous a drawdown right now would dramatically weaken the ability of the Afghan military to successfully combat the Taliban. And remember, Andrea, the Taliban is not just trying to beat the Afghan military. They are trying to take this national unity government, which is a year old, and they're trying to fracture it so the country can descend back into chaos where they can run the country. That's what they really want. The national unity government has been in place for a year. There is much good that they have been able to do, but the list of to-dos that are still on their shoulders are absolutely massive, and that's what the Taliban wants to destabilize. And so what the general said is, in his professional judgment, if we want there to be a functioning Afghan government that will stop the country from descending back into chaos, we shouldn't base our strategy on the date on a calendar. We should instead base our strategy on the degree to which we can continue to provide support to the country.
And, Senator, what about something I know you've been very involved with, which is Syria?
Yep.
And the lack of a war powers authorization. Now we've got Russia going into Turkish airspace. What is the risk of either an accidental or a deliberate provocation there? Turkey is a NATO member.
Andrea, I think this is a huge problem. I condemn the activities of Russia. up a horrible dictator, Bashar al-Assad, apparently, targeting the U.S.'s trained anti-ISIL fighters, violating Turkish airspace. I condemn Russia, but this definitely shows the U.S. doesn't have a policy for what's going on in Syria, other than writing a check to support humanitarian aid, and we're the largest provider of humanitarian aid in the world. We don't have a policy in this military theater against ISIL in Syria because Congress has refused to debate it and authorize it. The president began this campaign 14 months ago. He finally sent a proposed authorization to Congress in February. 8 months ago, there has been virtually nothing that's been done in Congress to engage and decide what our strategy is. And until that's done, you're going to see one more gruesome atrocity after the next, and you're going to see one more strategic catastrophe after the next, as is this recent news about Russian involvement.
Senator Tim Kaine, as always, thank you very much.
Absolutely, Andrea.